Maybe it's because there is the threat of a tornado and it just brings peace to your soul. But yeah,
well,
you never know.
I don't know how woo-woo you are, but I did a whole moon spell last night, and so I did the moon spell, and I know this is a coincidence, but I'm a big poppy girl, and so I have these poppies, and they've been about to like pop off. This main one, and it bloomed this morning, and I'm sure it's a coincidence, but maybe it's not. And then tarot reading today was like femininity and power, and so I've been good all day, which is very surprising for me because normally I would be very nervous for this.
Wow. I mean, I think that these are all good signs for success for this, as it should be. And, if we get to talk about all the wonderful things that you do, I'm glad we're recording it so that other people can hear it. So,
this is Epochal Growth, a growth support podcast. And I'm your host, Sarah Caminiti. This is episode 5 of Epochal Growth, Leveling Up After a Layoff with Miranda Lee. Miranda's a special leader. She reminds me a lot of myself 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. She knew deep down that there was a better way to lead. There was a better way to treat customers and understand customers, and so she didn't settle. She fought, and when an unexpected event happened and she was provided an opportunity to breathe, which, for those of us in the CX space, we know that does not come that often when you're on the clock. She realized that she was way better at her job than she gave herself credit. And I think that we can all understand that feeling. How many of us are kinder to others than we are to ourselves? We stop ourselves from taking those chances or for believing that we're capable of doing great things because we don't check all the boxes or we don't fit exactly what that person was described as within a job description. Or we don't stand up for ourselves when we're in situations that don't feel great. But if someone had come to us and said the exact same things that we're saying to ourselves, what would you have told them? I met Miranda when she was on a coffee chat tour. I was also on one myself. We got to talking and I saw a chance to maybe savor a couple of years. Self-doubt. Miranda is going to remind you that it's okay to be different. If you feel something strongly, and you know that you are capable of doing great things, do them. Don't settle. Don't listen to the people that tell you to be grateful for the job that you have that doesn't feel right. Don't agree with your bosses if they laugh at you for asking for a raise. That has nothing to do with you. Trust your gut. The longer you wait to try, the longer you wait to see how awesome things are when you believe in yourself. Miranda's currently leading a team. She's building up people around her in her community and on her team directly. She is just beginning to make incredible changes. She's seeing what happens when she trusts herself, and she's seeing what happens when you're confident enough in your abilities to ask questions, which can be a scary thing. This won't be the first time that you'll hear about Miranda Lee. This is just phase 1. But before I switch over to the actual interview, I have to ask, are you new to Epochal Growth? If you are, have you subscribed? You can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, on the growth support page. Make sure you're following along so you get notified when a new episode comes around. These leaders are too incredible to miss. All right, enough about business. This is Epochal Growth. I'm Sarah Caminiti, and let me introduce you to Miranda Lee.
Hi, Miranda. I am so happy that you are here.
Hello, Sarah. I am very excited to be here. I guess I'll just start out with introducing myself. I have been in support for my entire like tech career. I went to school for exercise science and spent a year working at Dell at their gym, and realized, I lived in Austin, Texas, and the tech world was at my fingertips. And so I was lucky enough to get in as the third Austin employee at a company called Just Uno, and I was hired as like a CSM, but was basically the all-encompassing support person, kind of, and so I'm grateful for that time, because truly, I was thrown into the fire, and I had to manage, I think it was like almost 1,400 accounts, so it was kind of trying to figure out, like, how do I categorize these accounts? How do I determine who I need to reach out to? And so that was, my first experience of creating like a dashboard and kind of using metrics to determine how I needed to work. And from there, I kept growing in the company, and I eventually moved on to our support team. And that was also where I got really scrappy there, and I'm proud of that, because I had to figure everything out myself, and it was just me using my intuition and just my experiences as a consumer, just knowing how I wanted to be treated. So how would we want to treat our customers? So I had an amazing team. I love them still. I created a lot of automations. That's, I guess, when I got good at that sort of thing. And then I've just kind of kept growing in my career, and small little tidbits of support have become my job tasks, I guess you could say. And I've had to learn, honestly, really every aspect of running a support department, and like, just every nook and cranny of support and success. And I think that's what is making me so successful. I'm going to say that to the universe. And I just have a lot of insight from all that time. And so unfortunately, after my second role, I was laid off after almost exactly a year. But I will say, like, that while it was a very stressful time in my life, and we're still like recouping as a family, it was exactly what I needed, right? I think I would have been still kind of not to this next level, and I would have had this crazy amount of like imposter syndrome, and I wasn't as confident. And because of that break that I had, I really dove into what resources do I have, and that's when I found like Support Driven. I eventually found like Elevate CX, and I just started following a bunch of people on LinkedIn in the support community, and just, like saving all of their advice. It was, I was probably lucky that it was during the time that everyone and their dog was getting laid off. So like, everyone had this advice to give. And so I started, taking courses, and just watching all of these webinars and trainings. And it really helped my confidence to see that a lot of the things that were being suggested and taught were things that I had figured out previously. And maybe they were in different iterations, but it was very validating for me to kind of see that, and like gave me the confidence boost that I needed, that I can run a support department. Like I've done all these aspects, and like what I've done is what people are suggesting as like a best practice. And so like that aspect was great, but then also just learning how to network, because I had truly never done that before. I lived in Austin and never really went to networking events. I didn't know they existed. And I started doing coffee chats and just talking to people and like getting to know them and making connections. And the first few, I feel bad for those people that had to talk to me because, you know, I had almost like a script lined out, or I'd spent like all morning trying to, I don't know, figure out like how to seem professional and relevant to these people. I mean, you know, it just takes practice, and it just takes doing it. And so, I mean, honestly, I'm just so grateful for the time that I had off to be able to network with these people and to learn as much as I could. Now here I am, like, confident.
Well, Miranda, I think that is such an incredible story. And thank you for breaking it down the way that you did, because you brought up some really good points. And one of the things that really stood out was when you were taking these courses, realizing that you had been doing these things for a while, and your initial approach as a consumer is one of the best things you can ever do when you're creating a foundation and support, because you are connecting with a consumer. At the end of the day, you have to remember what it feels like to be on the other side, and how you handle when someone just sends you a canned reply about something, or how you feel if you have to explain yourself over and over and over and over again because no one is taking the time to read the message. But it also shows how much you know, but you don't realize it because you're in it. You're so consumed by everything. You're moving on to the next fire. You're researching or playing around with or testing different strategies and ideas, and it's to connect with a customer. You don't think that it's necessarily these things. You're just trying to solve a problem for one person. And I love that time of, I'm trying to level up. I'm going to try to be a support professional, was actually a time for you to realize you have been a support professional for a really long time.
That's a good way to put it. Thank you for saying that. That like, yeah, I like that.
It's hard. I think support's one of those weird spaces where, I was talking with someone else about this earlier too. It's not like we go to college for it.
No.
I mean, look at what your degree is in. I don't
Right,
even
yeah.
have a degree. And you know, it's one of those things where you're good at it because you're good at connecting with people, you're good at problem solving, you're good at analyzing, being quick on your feet, being creative, but you also really care and you really want to make an impact. And it's evident that with your initial mindset going into this, that only grew. And I'm sure the teams that you have been able to connect with and share why it's so important, that's carried through with them too.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. So don't let yourself like undersell what you've done. You have touched everything and you have hit all those corners, and you have to. When you are in the weeds, when you are the first hire, third hire, any of those like entry level foundational folks for companies, or even just someone that wears a ton of hats, you have to touch everything at least once to see what it is. And then you can decide if it's relevant for you. And as you've moved on in your career, have you found that a lot of the things that you were doing before that you didn't realize were important actually were the things that were setting you up for success when you moved into your new role?
Totally. Well, and you know, you just, it's funny where things will happen in my current role, for example, and there'll be some situation from like a previous role that happened, and I just had to put my head down and figure it out. And then I realized like this happens consistently, like this is a normal thing, and now I know how to handle it. And at the time, you know, it kind of like you said, like I'm just trying to put the fires out I'm just trying to like learn as much as I need to learn to put this fire out. And then like down the line, you realize that, I don't know, like you're building
You're leveling up every
you're
time.
building your repertoire. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a hard thing to articulate. It's a hard thing to track. It's a hard thing
Yes.
to figure out how to put that into I don't know, some sort of percentage of whatever it is that needs to be kept track of throughout your career and be mindful of, because once that fire is out, you've moved on to the next fire. You actually were probably moving on to the next fire halfway through putting out the other fire.
Exactly. And I mean that's actually something that I struggle with, I guess, is because I am so used to just putting my head down and working that I haven't been documenting as much as I needed to. And that's something that if I would have had a mentor or just somebody, that was like just a little more leveled up that could have told me to make sure that all of those things were being documented and I was pulling the metrics as they happened. I wish I would have known that. So anybody listening that starting out, please like write it all down, pull the metrics as they happen. Then you'll have quantifiable,
Data. Like
data. Yeah, like
yeah.
on your resume.
Yeah. I mean, it's the exact same thing as support. It's you don't know what you don't know until it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
And with data and calculating stuff, context is key when you're putting it into the space that you're going to be keeping track of it. So if you go back and you're trying to figure out, okay, when I first started, what was happening? What has been changed since I have joined? Your headspace is so different. The way that you're looking at things, the way that you're understanding or QAing things is totally different because you are not in that same headspace. The team isn't in that same headspace. And that's why you've got to do, I mean, what do they recommend? Like once a month, you take a moment
Yes.
to reflect and to just jot down some wins. And why not dedicate time to celebrate yourself?
Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, I wish like baby Miranda would have done that too, because I probably would have had more confidence in myself, and if I had written down all of the like good things that I had done and successful things that I had implemented, then it would have been on a piece of paper in one spot. And I think like that would have helped my confidence, which directly translates to just interviewing, right? Like if you don't have that kind of baseline confidence in yourself, it always comes out. And yeah, like, that's a key factor, I feel like, in interviewing, where you can prepare as much as possible and you can learn all about the job, you can memorize whatever, like, but if you don't have the confidence in yourself and know that you are a good fit for the job and you can knock the job out of the park, then it's going to show. As an interviewer now, you can see that in people that you interview as well.
No, that is the most valuable thing that people that are starting out need to know. It is the transformative opportunity that comes with taking pride in yourself and thinking about you as a success story. And those little things that you do matter, and they do translate to things. And each ticket that you solve is a reflection of your ability to do this job well. And the way that you handle mistakes, the way that you communicate with others, the way that you brainstorm, or all of that will just build and build and build if you start to realize that you are valued. And that goes to the leader. That is something that when you are leading a team, it is your responsibility for those folks that are just starting out in the industry, or even not just starting out, just people that work under you in your team or people that are in the company. Like, you are their advocate. You have to tell them, I need you to brainstorm with me. I need you to tell me that wild idea that I know that you have in the back of your head, because who knows? Who knows? And it will hopefully grow.
Right. And I mean, like, that is something I'm so passionate about, just including your team in your thought process, you know, your planning, the growth of the department, because, like, I'm not the expert. Like, I don't have all of the perfect ideas, but when you have two people that have a similar idea and you talk about it, then you probably will come up with something like really great. You know, just making sure that your team has that voice and feels comfortable just like voicing that other ideas, you know, is extremely important. And then I would say, like, rewarding those ideas, right? Where that can just kind of segue into always working to ensure that your team is on their own path for growth that they want to do. And it's almost like fun for me, right? Because you meet with them, you get to know them, you learn about them, you learn about their passions, and then you can kind of brainstorm. I guess that probably comes from my mom, where, like, I just always try to problem solve, you know, and I always want to make people's lives easier and more fulfilling. And so when you're just brainstorming with this person and they say, I really love writing articles, or I really love, you know, just like maybe marketing. And then together, you can go find, is there a course that you should be taking? Are there, like, webinars that I've seen that would be good? And I mean, even job descriptions. I'm not above, if there's a perfect role for you out there, I'm going to send it to you, because, like, why not? So yeah, I mean, that, like, I could probably talk about that all day, because I love when people are happy and successful in their roles in this communist hellscape that we live in. So
Oh, Miranda, how lucky are the people that get to work with you? Gosh, that is so beautiful that you are providing this space for others to grow and thrive and come to you to brainstorm. And the fact that you are thinking about them as humans and thinking about them as valuable members of the company, and identifying that sometimes you can be the best person for, the company culture. You can tick all of those boxes, but this may not be the right role for you. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. That's an exciting thing. Let's explore it. That could be here. That could be with some of the people that you're having these coffee chats with. And and just kind of remind them that no matter what, you want them to succeed. And if that means they're going to stick around for a little while, awesome. But if it doesn't, awesome. And while they're around you, they're going to know you want them there. You want them there. You want them to feel fulfilled. And the performance that comes out of folks that feel that way from their leadership is unlike any other kind of performance that you can get out of an employee. So you are doing that. So congratulations, truly.
And I mean, I feel like that's almost like the end all be all of if you want to provide the best customer support experience possible, investing in your team is like the number one way you're going to do that. That there's no amount of, like, KPIs or workforce management tools, like, you know, if they feel happy and fulfilled in their role, then they're going to want to like give that same energy to your customers. I'll die on that hill. There's no better way to do it than just being good to your team and putting them first, in my opinion. That might be kind of controversial. It tends, you watch like some of these just like webinars, it's just different people all over LinkedIn adding their opinions, and there's all kinds of opinions, right? Where it's like which metrics are best, which support model is best, and it can get really complicated and convoluted and nuanced really quickly. And I don't know, like maybe it's me being naive, but I feel like that's the number one thing. If you have a happy team and you're like slightly good at operations and automations and you are a consumer of a product, then you're good. That's what you need, you know?
Say it as loud as you possibly can, because it's true. It's one thing I've realized with support throughout my career. It's like I keep coming back to how simple it all really is at the end of the day. Like maybe like the actual information can be complicated, the knowledge base could be robust,
It can be a little overwhelming sometimes.
Overwhelming security stuff you got to think about. Sure, all of that, yes, that's going to change from industry or from company to company to company to company. It's going to be different everywhere. But in that same space, one thing remains the same. One thing. You have to be a supported, valued person within the company in order to provide a level of support that you want the customer to receive.
Yeah.
That's it. And the only way to do that is to have a boss or a leader that is there letting you breathe. Because if you are stressing about a metric that means nothing and has no reflection on you, like most of the metrics in support.
I was about to say, we could go down the CSAT like rabbit hole, but
my gosh, yeah. And we both have, I feel like we've talked about this before. It's like the metric stuff is a party in itself. But if you've got someone on your side that says, okay, we've got to do these metrics because others, we got to do it. I mean, that's just the name of the game. We're in support. We have to produce these numbers. Cool. This is why. But when we enter this, I want you to know this is how I'm going to be using it. This is how I'm going to be looking at it. It's going to have no impact on how I believe you are doing in your job, unless something comes up that I would need to talk to you about, sure. But during QA, that would come up in and of itself. So like on its own. So, I mean, that's no different. But what a weight off of the shoulders. And then those CSATs, when I implemented it, I turned it into a chance to remind people of the small things that make people happy. Like this person rated you a 5 for giving them a support article on how to change your password.
Yep.
Or like this person said, wow, you changed my day because you listened to them when they were explaining why they couldn't update their payment fast enough for the first failed try. Like all of those little things that you don't think matter. And that's the only positive I see with CSATs. How do you have to use any metrics in your space currently?
Yeah, we have a few that we look at. I would say, in my opinion, like truly, if you want to catch somebody that probably isn't at their computer very often and like really isn't doing their job, there are maybe 4 metrics that you need to look at, and you can easily catch that. And you know, with CSAT, like I'm with you. Yes, there are. You can find some negative traits, perhaps, if there is a trend that pops up in CSAT. But honestly, most bad CSAT scores aren't controllable. But like it's some kind of like irate person, because only angry people really leave reviews. I agree with you in the sense of just, I always try to use the positive CSATs to like the team's advantage and just as a confidence builder. But yeah, I mean, I with metrics, and you know, it's such a not argued, but like just well debated topic of what metrics work, how many metrics do you need, do you have to create these giant reports, and then like what are you going to do with that information? What story are you going to tell that you need that, like that much data, and
For that kind of data.
right, yeah, like I mean, and that's a good way to put it. Like you still need to look at the data, and that's one of my favorite things. You know, I love finding trends. I love like looking at numbers, which I'm not even I don't like math, so I don't know why I enjoy numbers so much now. But I mean, you know, I love, I'm a sucker for a good dashboard, and I love, you know, a good, well honed in dashboard that just tells you the high level that you need to know. And then if you happen to see a trend, and have a more like detailed dashboard or tab or like whatever that you can move on to like find that information. Obviously make sure that you're categorizing your tickets so you can dive into that you're adding tags, that you're setting that up properly in the beginning so you're scaling well. I feel like if your support agents trust you and respect you, then they're not going to try to play you, if that makes sense. You know, like they want to do their job. I don't think all of that is needed. I hope that doesn't like shoot me in the foot later or something. I mean, I don't know.
I don't think it would. No, I mean, it's I couldn't agree more. I think that if someone is underperforming or someone is doing something that they shouldn't be, or maybe they're going through something in their life and it's causing performance situations, you know, like metrics are not going to be the thing that tells you this. Metrics aren't going to be pinpointing this. No, you are monitoring how your team is communicating with customers, and you're going to notice, oh, this is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's have a conversation about that.
Yeah,
and because we have a foundation, so that you're going to know you're coming from a good place. You're not trying to attack them. If you're hiring people that you're concerned about if they're spending too much time away from their computer or something like that, then you're hiring wrong. That's your problem.
Yeah, that's an interviewing problem that you have, not
Yeah, that's if you've got a well-performing team, there are many other ways to look at what the actual experience is for the customers. And but in a pivot from metrics, one thing that I really did want to ask you about, Miranda, is you and I have talked a handful of times, and I've gotten to know you pretty well, and so impressed by your knowledge and your passion and the light that you have been providing to those that you interact with. And through our conversations, you've shared how you have this feeling inside of you of like, you know what you're capable of, and you're so like it fuels you, like it is something that has been lit inside of you and you didn't expect it, and it's just this thing that's telling you, I know I can do this. And this, I mean, we talked about it briefly earlier, about having that confidence when you go into the interviews, but I want to know more about when it clicked and how it clicked and how that changed the way you approach your work. I
mean, and I'll start by saying too, like, I have never been confident ever. Like, you know, I have had anxiety my whole life. And I played basketball. And so, you know, that there's a lot of anxiety inducing moments when you play basketball. And, I've just never felt like I was good at anything, which I know sounds like very bad, but maybe it's like a millennial thing or whatever. But this is like the first time in my life that I truly do know that I'm doing a good job. And I think what helped solidify that for me was, I mean, talking to people, taking these courses, and also just kind of seeing examples around me that don't work. And it's almost like I already knew how to do it, but just wasn't sure that that was how you're supposed to do it. And then you see it done the other way, and you're like, oh, that's why I was doing it this way. And I mean, that's why it was working. And I guess maybe, and there are obviously like multiple ways to skin a cat, right? Where like there are multiple ways to run a support department well and successfully. But I feel like all of those successful ways stem from very basic support models, right? And that there's just some like basic knowledge that you can easily find and that everyone talks about, and it's just well known in the community on how to start a support department, how to run a support department. And then when you see other directions being taken, it just kind of solidifies your confidence. I don't know, you know what I mean? So that was what solidified it for me. But then I'm also just like continuously, now I've got the bug, right? And so now I want to network with people, and I want to like watch these webinars and learn about these topics, because I already have a basis of understanding about these topics. And so I'm watching them and learning about them to continue to level up. And I don't know if that was like too far of a stray, but just where,
not at all.
Where before, before my break, when I was just kind of doing scrappy things that I thought made sense to me, I didn't really know some of the lingo. I didn't know what a support model was. But then I remember I had a coffee chat last fall, and there was some role that I was applying for, and that was one of their main things. They were talking about somebody that is like, has a good knowledge base in the basic support models and how to run it. And so I was talking to this person just about like, well, I don't know what a support model is. Like, what do you do? What's a support model? And they just kind of asked me how I ran my teams, and they're like, that's a support model. And it just kind of clicked, right? Where I was like, oh yeah. So I have been doing it correctly or well enough. I just didn't know what it was called, or I didn't know the lingo for it. And so now, like, as I'm diving into these webinars and like doing more networking, I'm catching on to the lingo and then connecting it to my knowledge. And again, just like it stems my confidence where I am just making all these connections and understanding that I've been doing it all along. And so I feel like we've kind of like, I keep going back to that. So I don't want to like,
No, Miranda, this is exactly what I was asking. This is exactly what I was asking. Yeah, that, of course, it makes sense. You're validating everything that you had thought that you were just kind of winging it and making it up as you were going along. And then it turns out that actually you were functioning on a much higher level that whole time. And of course you didn't know about all of these webinars and didn't know about different communities and such, because you were in it and you didn't have the brain capacity to start to branch out and think about those things. And that's one of the disadvantages, I think, of support life. I mean, I'm sure every different department feels this in some way, shape, or form, but to be in the weeds, to not have maybe the right help desk, or to not have the budget to hire another person that would actually allow you to be a leader and create an actual space for support that isn't panic, and assess what you have and come up with game plans. Like, it takes a long time for many support professionals to reach a point where they can breathe and they can reflect and they can connect those dots. And it's sad that so many folks only get that chance when they've had something as terrible as a layoff turn into a blessing, because they're able to breathe and they haven't been able to breathe for so long. And so now you were able to come up for air and you saw, hey, there's these webinars on these things. Hey, I know what these terms are now. I can be part of the conversation and not feel like I have no idea what's going on. And your confidence is just going to continue to grow. And pretty soon you're going to be leading a webinar or a masterclass, because why wouldn't you?
Right. And I mean, one thing that I think about too, because I remember, like, I used to, as I would apply for jobs or like find other leaders in the industry, I would creep their LinkedIn, and their job history, and be like, wow, they grew so quickly, they're a director now, they're a VP, like they grew so quick, that's so cool. And I would almost be a little like bummed or jealous, where it's like, oh, well, I'm not good enough. Like I haven't gotten there. But a lot of times it's just, those people had really great bosses and had a really great company or support system that pushed growth and guided growth. And so you just have to like remind yourself that you did it kind of by yourself, and you figured it out. And maybe if I would have had those opportunities, I would be a director or a VP by now, or just what have you.
But not Miranda, like truly it is what you have felt inside of you, that fire that is inside of you. That's what's going to propel you. I mean, yeah, going about it in different ways, having people that support you, that build you up, that's the dream. But at the end of the day, if you know that you're capable of something, if you and you decide, no, I'm not going to settle anymore. Like, I know my worth. I know that I would bring value to this place, and own it and live it and breathe it, and don't let yourself go back to doubting everything you know. That's when a lot of those leaps happen, when you say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, I know that I have a better way than what I've been seeing. I know that it's possible to do things better. I've proven that it's possible to do things better. And you just keep fighting. That is the coolest way to level up, because when you get there, you got there because you believed in yourself so much. And it's in, I mean, is it an underdog story? I don't know, but it's a fight
story. I don't know.
Yeah, you're a fighter. And you look at my LinkedIn doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah.
But
I
mean, there's a lot of that their LinkedIn's make zero sense, and it's because they just fought. And so you are fighting, and you're showing other people how to fight, and talking about fighting and talking about owning it, and that's what's going to ignite change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like as I grow, which I mean, we discussed empowering your team, but I also like just want to empower others too, where like there is a positive in fighting and being scrappy, but there's also a positive in just like getting help and talking to people and and getting advice without having to make as many mistakes. Like, obviously you have to make mistakes. That is what makes you you. But there are a lot of mistakes that you know, could have been, someone could have just told me not to do that. You know?
Yeah. It's I think as the support career landscape grows and expands, we're going to hopefully see more of a stream, not necessarily streamline, but the conversation is going to be out there. And it wasn't out there when you started.
You're right.
Probably it wasn't out there when I started. Even if I wasn't paying attention, I feel like I would have seen somewhere that someone was talking about support on the level that they are now. And
I mean, I was in Austin, you know, surely I would have found something, you know, and that is such a good point. That I feel like support kind of has been the underdog for quite a while, and it was considered a stepping stone of path or whatever, career path. And now businesses and people are realizing that this is the heart of your business, this is the face of your business. It should be a department that is taken seriously, you know, and that they're just that they're, it's almost like, because I feel like, you know, sales has had this for a while, right? Where they were able to network, and there are all these communities and just even other departments like dev, you know, that's a very tight knit community, and there are often Slacks and groups that you can join. And you're right, it wasn't much of a thing back in the day.
No, back in the day. And almost I feel like we the folks that decided to become support professionals that are in our group of our graduating class, because support professional wasn't really a term until pretty recently, at least from what I saw.
No.
And we got pissed. We were like, no, I am so sick. Yeah, I'm so sick of not being loud about what we're doing and doing well and what we can do and what we need and the people that are around us. And so we're going to build teams that feel valued. We're going to build teams that are successful because we are a unit, and we are advocating for the customer by advocating for ourselves. And I think that is what's going to be changing what's to come. We're going to be seeing those people have more standard LinkedIn profiles, because so many of us were not necessarily on our own, but it
just didn't
was a lonely time.
Quite yet. I mean, that's like a good kind of example or parallel to pull is I'm very into climate science and climate change and all these things. And so I used to listen to all these podcasts, and a lot of those people were kind of like us, you know, that their degrees weren't mitigating climate change or these all-encompassing titles. He kind of Frankensteined their career together by learning what they needed. And I feel like that is a good parallel to kind of what we've done, you know, where we just have learned what we needed as we needed it. And then now there's a bunch of us, and we're finding each other, and we're all talking about it and brainstorming. And that's beautiful. I love that.
It is beautiful. It is beautiful. It's a really cool time in support. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of opportunity. And we're capitalizing on it.
Yes.
And it'll pay off. I definitely think it'll pay off. So when I end these awesome conversations, I like to ask my guests one thing, and that is, what era do you find yourself in currently, or what era do you see yourself moving into? And Miranda, I would love to know your era.
I am absolutely in my, I wish I had a cool buzzword to use, you know, like Taylor does. But I'm in my leadership era and my growth era. Just this, I feel like this is where I'm gonna look back. I just recently moved to Arkansas. We've got a full house with multiple rooms. Like, I was in a very small studio apartment for quite a while with one window, and that'll take a toll on your mental health for sure. And
Working from home. I bet.
like, you know, here I am. I have an office space. I have a house. I'm in a new place where I can ride my bike all the time, and I can feel everything turning for the better, almost like the Wheel of Fortune tarot card. That's what I'm going to call this era. Is like, you know, there's ups and downs, and I am currently in an up. I hope it stays that way for a while because it was down for a while. I'd like to coast for a little bit, and I really hope I can look back on this time and say, you know, this is right before I blasted off, right? Or I really shot into my confidence and who I am as a professional and as a person, as a woman. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Damn, that is a damn good era to be in, and a very well-deserved era. And I am so excited to see where you blast off to, Miranda, because just the way that you have entered this space has been with such grace and just kindness and openness, and it's going to pay off because we all see it, we all feel it, and we love to lift up those that are around us, and just like you've been doing to others. And so I am so pumped for you, and I am so happy that you're here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you very much for this incredible hour and for your first podcast. You did it. I crushed it. And we'll talk very, very soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Have a lovely night.
You too. We'll talk to you later.
And that's another episode of Epochal Growth. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe, please subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and you can also find us and subscribe on Growth Support's YouTube page. New episodes are coming every Tuesday. I am Sarah Caminiti. Thank you so much for spending this time with me.